So we will be starting to solve quadratic equations. Quadratic equation means an equation where your variable, the highest exponent would be 2. In order to solve quadratic equation, we will be using the factoring skill. So we will be factoring a quadratic equation into its factor and then use the zero product property, which states that if two factors are multiplied and your product is a 0, what we can guess about the numbers that one of them has to be 0. So either A is 0 or B is 0. So let's work on this one. So if you look at the first polynomial, it's given in factor form of a polynomial, and the product of these two is what? A 0. So we can use a zero product property and make it, solve it. So we'll put x plus 5 equals 0. So one of them has to be 0, or x plus 6 equals 0. So when we solve this linear equation, we are moving the 5 and moving the 6 to the other side because we want to find the value of the variable. So the two solutions are -5 and -6. So mostly when we solve quadratic equation is basically finding x-intercepts. So what are intercepts? Intercepts are the points where the graph is crossing your x-axis or your y-axis. So these points are your intercepts, and all these 4 points are your x-intercepts. And the property about this is any coordinate on x-axis, say suppose this is 2, you know the y value would be 0, and that is the reason why y is 0 up over here. So we know when we graph quadratic, it always gives you the shape of a parabola. And here what's happening is that -6 and -5 are the x-intercepts. And how to write it out? We write it the solutions. So solving quadratic equation is basically finding the x-intercepts of our quadratic equation or our parabola. So this was given in factored form, so it made it easier. We didn't have to go through the factor, but if you compare to the other equation, this is not given in factor form. But first thing we have to check that is it in standard form. That means all the terms are in one side, the other side is 0, and the answer is yes. So we start factoring. So first step of factoring is GCF, and 7 is a prime number, so 7 is not divisible, so GCF is 1. Now how many terms are there? There are 3 terms, and since we have a leading coefficient 3 terms, we will be finding product and sum. So our factors are, since our product is negative, we know one of the number is negative. Since this is positive, so it's 1 and 8. So we split the middle term. Because we have a leading coefficient, we have to do factor by grouping. So we are getting -x plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. Now factor by grouping, the GCF of the first group is x. The GCF of the other group is 4, a positive 4. So when I divide by x, I end up as 2x minus 1, and I should be ending up as 2x minus 1. So we know that same factor, so we take out as this as GCF, we are left with x plus 4 equals 0. So we use the factoring skill to factor our polynomial or quadratic a trinomial into 2 factors. Now we have to solve it. That means find the value of x. So we will be putting 2x minus 1 is 0, x plus 4 is 0, and we know that if the factor is positive, our solution would be negative because minus 4. So it's a negative, so it would be 2x equal 1 divided by 2. So our answer is half and -4. It needs to be written in solution set, and whenever we use curly, we call this as set builder notation. And we always list the smallest number and then the largest number. So -4.5 are the solution. That means our graph is intersecting the x-axis at -4.5. We are getting two solutions. Moving on to C, this is not written in standard form, so we need to move this 2 to the other side. So we'll do -2x, and that's how we are getting a 0. So first thing, it has to be written in standard form. Now the first step of factoring is GCF, and the GCF is x. Immediately after writing, so you're dividing by x, so this gives 3x minus 2, so x is 0, 3x minus 2 is 0, because the product is 0, we can write. We already got a solution, x is 0. When we are solving this one, we are getting two solutions here, a 0 and 2/3. So our graph is crossing 0 and 2/3. So something like this is happening to our graph, to x-intercept. Now moving on to the next one. Again, it's not written in standard form, so we need to move the 6. We need to move the 9. So it looks like x square minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Don't move the x square, because if I move the x square, this is positive, it will become negative. We want a positive leading coefficient. Now the first step is GCF. The GCF is 1. Trinomial, so we do what? Product, which is 9, and sum, which is -6. So what are the factors? 1 and 9, and both has to be negative, then only we can get a and -3 and -3, or we can use the perfect square trinomial on this one. Since they are identical, even if we do it twice, we will be getting only one solution. So what's happening here is the vertex is touching the x-axis. That's why we are getting one solution. So we can have maximum 2 x-intercept or 1, or you can have none also. So if the case is something, if your graph goes like this or graph goes like this, you have no x-intercept or no solution, because it will never intersect. Moving on to the next equation. So again the problem, we don't have a 0, so we need to move the 16. And how many terms? GCF is 1. How many terms? 2 terms. If it is 2 terms, we will be using difference. So difference means minus. We have a minus of 2 squares. And they are square. This is square of 3. This is square of 4. So I will be writing 3x minus 4, 3x plus 4 equals 0. So 3x minus 4 is 0, 3x plus 4 is 0. So 3x equal 4, divide by 3, minus 4, 3x equal -4, divide by 3. So what are the two solutions we are getting? -4 over 3 and 4 over 3. So moving to the other one, here it's already written in standard form. So first thing is GCF, which is x, and when I divide, I'm getting these, and using the 0 property factor, we have x plus 2. And if you notice, when we are copying it, we don't put parentheses anymore. So we got already first solution 0, the other one is -2, so the two solutions are -2 and 0. On this one, all ready, because it's 0. So first step is GCF, and what is the GCF in this case? The GCF is 5, So 5x square plus 11x plus 24 is equal 0. Now the trinomial leading coefficient is 1, so product is 24, sum is 11. What are the two numbers? 1 and 12, 2 and 1 and 24, 2 and 12, and 3 and 8. So since the leading coefficient is 1, I don't have to break it apart. I can just write x plus 3, x plus 8 equals 0. So 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 8 equals 0. And 5 cannot be 0, so we omit it. So we have two solutions, x negative 8 and negative 3. On this one we need to FOIL it out first, because though it's given in factor but it's not equal to 0. So x minus 1, 3x plus 4 is not equal to 0. If it is not 0, we need to FOIL it out. So we get x 3x square plus 4x minus x minus 4, and that gives you 3x square plus 3x minus 4. So once we are able to simplify, now the next job is that we want a 0 on this side. Okay, so our product now, because it's trinomial, we need to find product, and leading coefficient is x, so I can write x and x. So what are the numbers? 2 is a prime number, so what are the factor 2 and this? And we made a mistake on this one. So 3x square, 4x minus 3x, sorry, it should have been a minus 3x, so it should have been just a x. So so the number is, so easy fix on this one. So it's plus 1 minus 2, so x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0, x equals 2, x equals negative 1. So the two solutions are negative 1 and 2.